Welcome to the Peer Perspective Podcast, where we dive into real stories of recovery, resilience, and hope. I'm your host, Kyle Van Blaricum, and today we have an incredible journey to share with you. But before we begin, if you know anyone who might be inspired by today's message, please take a moment to share the podcast with them. Your support helps us reach more people who need to hear these powerful stories. Let's get started. Welcome back to the Peer Perspective Podcast. I'm so excited to introduce my next guest, Michelle Uetz of Rocky Hill Parent Peer Specialists. She joins me and shares her own personal journey into parent peer support, but provides a lot of insight just about supporting families. Michelle's company employs parent peers, peer supports, and it's just really exciting to hear all the good work that she's doing in our communities across Wisconsin. So, without further ado, I hope you enjoy the episode. All right. So, Michelle, again, I appreciate your willingness to meet me today. We had a really nice conversation a couple weeks ago, and I just learned so much about, you and your organization. And I'm hoping to share with the people that are going to watch and listen, more about the parent peer support world. And then, you know, you have a pretty interesting story too. And I think that uh, if you're comfortable, maybe we could start there and you can kind of share like what your background is and what got you into peer support, parent peer support.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me on here. And I guess I've had my own challenges with depression and anxiety since college, and been able to manage that. And then I have a sister who struggled with significant mental illness really through her whole life. We just didn't know it when she was younger. And in 2016, she died by suicide. And so that, helping her through systems and supporting her, growing up with her, I had that background of mental illness. After she passed, we went to Kentucky to visit my mom's family and saw my cousin's kids who were living with their grandparents, so be my aunt and uncle. We offered to bring them back home with us because they bookend our three boys for ages. Um, and offered like, hey, we can take them back with us, give them a little break, give uh, my aunt and uncle a break, and uh, show them some different things. So we did that. After 2 weeks, my aunt and uncle said, hey, we think they'd be better off staying with you. So they did. We took guardianship. We really didn't know much about their trauma history, just that they weren't living with their parents. And so as they stayed with us, as things got settled in, we started to see and learn more about their trauma history, things that experienced, their mental health struggles, their behavior struggles. And then we started to learn about the children's mental health system. With the girls, we experienced and learned about inpatient treatment, inpatient psychiatric treatment, day treatment, finding a therapist, experienced residential treatment, getting involved in county services, and even having the police at our house. Through all of that, we learned how difficult it can be for parents.
Yeah, and I know when we spoke, you had shared those things and it just what a difficult thing to have to navigate that. And my hope with you kind of sharing your experience is that other parents that might be struggling, just knowing I know that could be an extremely isolating thing. And I know you had shared that a little bit to me, with me, some of those details the last time we met. Um, can you talk a little bit about your background, your education? Because you do parent peer support now, but you actually have a background as a teacher.
Yes. Yeah, we actually thought, oh, we could do this. I'm a teacher. I taught high school emotional behavioral disorder. Uh, that was the group that I taught at the time. And before that, I taught other students in special education. And I also had taught high school biology and health. Those are my certifications, licensure, biology, health, and special education. I taught a total of 17 years. So when we took on having the girls here with our boys, we're like, oh, we've got this background, this education knowledge, we can do this. Not the case. Even with all that information and background, it was a lot more than I had experienced. Um, yeah, I started doing parent peer support in 2018 while I was still teaching online for a public online school. And then in 2021, I got so busy that I had to quit teaching. So I didn't really want to quit teaching, but oh, I needed to. So
Yeah, this you became a parent peer support right at the inception. Do I remember that correctly? You played a role in kind of creating that certification in Wisconsin.
I was in the first group of the training of trainers. Yeah, so as the first one of the first trainers trained, there was a group of 10 to 15 of us. I forget the exact number at the time, in 2018. Yes. And before that, I had gotten my Minnesota family peer certification, um, because I had learned about that and they had it in Minnesota. I live right on the border of Wisconsin and Minnesota. And so at that and started contacting Wisconsin DHS saying, do you have this? When are you going to have it? I want to do this. And I would contact them every few months. Are you ready yet? Are you ready yet? Until they finally called me and said, yeah, we're ready. Come on.
That's awesome. So you've been doing the parent peer support professionally for about 6 years now,
Yes.
okay. So at what point did you kind of make the switch over and start doing this full time pursuing? Because you actually have your own company, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But at what point were you like, I'm gonna leave the teaching world behind and do this?
It was the summer of 2021. I got so many families that I was supporting in that summer that when I looked at my schedule, I don't have time to teach anymore. So before that, I was scheduling visits with families around my teaching schedule, and then it started to grow.
And now you have your own company and you employ peers, supporters, and really across the state of Wisconsin, right? Um,
Yes. Yep.
so can you kind of talk a little bit about the system that you work with? You're involved with CCS, right?
Yes.
Can you talk a little
Coordinated
bit?
community services.
Okay, can you talk a little bit about that and how parents are maybe able to enroll, what that can look like?
Yeah. And so CCS stands for Coordinated Community Services. Um, and it is a county program. Depending on the county, it's either run through the behavioral health department or mental health department. Um, it's usually through the Health and Human Services umbrella. And if a parent or a family child has Medicaid, so Badger Care, then they can call the county number and request a screen or screening, request services. And then a service facilitator, it's often someone with a social work background, will schedule time to come and meet with the family. We meet with them, talk about the person's uh, mental health diagnoses, what are their needs, what are the barriers to get their needs met. What natural supports do they have? Um, Hospitalizations, what's been happening, crisis that they've had, kind of where they're at in their mental health or substance use journey and recovery. Once they find out, where they're at, what their needs are, then they determine if they meet the criteria for that service. If they meet the criteria for receiving the CCS service, then they start talking about what do they need to recover, recover from substance use, recover from the mental health challenges, mental illness, and then they start putting services in for that person. And one of those services can be a peer specialist or parent peer specialist. And kind of the difference between the two then is a peer specialist works with the individual, one person, and a parent peer specialist works with the parents or caregivers, grandparents or whoever has the child, um, of a child with a mental health or substance use disorder. Um, Often in that case, it's usually not that simple. Often a parent has a mental health issue as well, um, or a parent is maybe just getting a kid back from being removed from the home, and the kid may have mental health issues, and the parent saying, "I don't know how to deal with this." Um, there's so many situations, so many different ways that can look. That I don't say there's one cut and dry situation because we have variety.
Yeah, I have to say, I mean, I wasn't super familiar with what CCS was or is until recently, and it's a really dynamic team. It's essentially a team of people, and everybody kind of has their role. And so, the peer or the parent peer really brings that lived experience. So, like in your case, navigating those services, you really are able to walk uh, beside the parent in that. And so, I just think it's such an opportunity for people to have, someone there to advocate and just experience some of those difficult times with them, and a lot of good, really positive things too. Can you speak maybe to I don't know, obviously not s- names or anything, but can you maybe share like a success story that you've seen?
Oh, yeah, there is a family that I got a referral for, and they'd had several services in and out of the home. Um, when I met with the mother, she was resistant, and she told me like straight out, I don't have time for this. I don't have time for one more person to come and tell me what to do. She's like, I've had people telling me what to do. And I said, I get it. That's hard. I've been there. And she had other kids. We met at like a softball park when one of our other kids was at softball practice. And I said, I can see you're a busy mom. I do not want to, just be one more appointment you have to have. I said, if it's okay with you, I'll tell you what I do, and you can decide if this is going to work for you or not. The referral I got was, you need to help this mom. It was kind of the referral. But I was going with, like, hey, what do you need? What do you want? Is this going to work for you? And so we sat and we chatted. And as I told her what I do and a little bit about my background, not a full story, but enough that she knew where I was coming from. She looked at me and said, "Where were you 2 years ago? I could have used you then. But yes, I need you. This is the one thing I do need." Yeah, so we worked together. Sometimes it was phone calls, sometimes it was in-person meetings. I worked around her schedule. We'd meet, different places, home or community. Um, and it was about a year that I supported her. Uh, and then she didn't need me anymore, which was perfect. I'm not there to do anything for them or to be there forever, but just to support them through the toughest times and help them to uh, get more confident and get the support that they need and then move forward.
Thank you for that. Thank you for sharing that. I think we get this unique opportunity to be a front row, see these things play out, and it's a yeah, it's a special experience to see those successes. So, um, Michelle, can you talk a little bit about your organization? And I know you've kind of touched on it, but you do some like you have like a special curriculum. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, that is in addition to parent peer support. Um, when I was teaching health and special education, I was teaching in a program that was for transition students. So they had gone through high school, they were 18, and they were learning life skills. There's a special program at UW Stout for a while. It's no longer there, unfortunately, um, where the students would come for the week and would stay in the dorm, learn life skills and job skills, and they'd go home on the weekends. In the dorm, we learned that there were some social skill deficits, including relationships and sexuality. So I created, and we also realized in talking to parents and students that they really hadn't had the traditional sex ed in school, the health class part. So I created a sexuality for young adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities curriculum. And I use that mostly with CLTS, which is Children's Long-Term Support, or also called waiver. When a parent says, my kid is going through puberty and doing these behaviors, and I don't know what to do. So I'll bring that curriculum in with the parent, and we go through that with the kid and talking about, a developmentally appropriate way, often with just pictures talking about their body, what's happening, what's okay and where, talking about consent, um, and then giving the parent a resource to come back to because it's not one conversation, it's a constant discussion. And so that helps parents with that really difficult topic that they have a hard time navigating. So that's kind of an additional service that we do with another program.
That's awesome. Well, such a need for it, right? Like, can you talk a little bit about the barriers that you currently see in the peer support, parent peer support world?
Yeah. One of the barriers is that the service facilitators really understanding our role and utilizing us correctly. Often we're called parent coaches or parent educators. I'm like, yeah, we do some education, when parents ask for that. It's in our like well, points underneath our name on stuff, but that's not our focus. We don't come in to tell parents what to do. There is a time and place for parent coaches for some parents. They want that instruction, but that's not our focus. That's not our role. We are there to sit beside, walk beside parents and support them in the ways that they need. And that's parent driven. It's not parent peer driven. It's driven by the parent. Um, and then also like the parents really understanding what we do. If the service facilitator says it, provides the information to them as a parent coach, they're often very reluctant to have the service. And so then when we talk to them, if I get an opportunity to talk to a parent and I can explain to them what we do, there's a big change in their willingness to have the support. Like, oh, okay, you're not going to tell me how to do everything. And then I'm a bad parent. Yes, you can come. I would love support. Thank you.
Yeah, it's interesting
Um,
how in different systems support means different things, right? Like I'm going to support you can mean like I'm going to tell you what to do or what you have to do in some places, right? So
yes.
sorry, I just wanted to throw
No,
that in there.
you're so right. Yeah. The other barrier that we face a lot is peers, either certified peer specialists or parent peer specialists, we're non-clinical. We don't do clinical things. In fact, we're mandated to have clinical supervision. Um, but so yeah, we're non-clinical, but we work in a clinical system. I think it was last week, recently, I was just meeting with a county and their like clinical coordinator, going through their note system with some new providers, and she started talking some clinical stuff, and I just said, "Oh, pause. Can I can I jump in here?" She's more than willing to have me add some things, and I said, "Just a reminder, peers are not clinical." And she said, "Oh, yeah, you're right. I forgot about that." They're just used to working in a clinical world. That's what they do. And so we have to remind them, we're not clinical. We're not going to write those clinically, strict notes. Um, and we don't do the clinical things on purpose. We're there to be a peer. So it's just kind of feel like I'm always reminding people. And then also like walking that in that non-clinical role, but yet maintaining the Medicaid requirements. It's the spot we have to walk through.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that, and I think there's so many opportunities to educate people, and sometimes it's kind of fun, right? To uh,
Yeah.
um, can you talk a little bit about what you see as the future of peer support, parent peer support, what that looks like or hopefully looks like in the future?
What I would love to see, and I feel like we're getting closer to it. We're starting to have these conversations at conferences because I am with people, is having a peer specialist in at everyday treatment, at every residential treatment, and at every adolescent inpatient program. I should say everyday treatment with for adolescents and residential treatment for adolescents. Um, I've been at all of those as a parent or as a caregiver, and it's stressful, it's isolating, it's shaming, um, and you kind of sit in your car and cry afterward. And so parents really need that support in those places where there just isn't anything. So I would love to see parent peer support each of those places across the state. As well as like my goals, I would love to see, it doesn't have to be me. I just want like to see parent peer specialists in every county in Wisconsin so that it's available to everyone that wants it.
Yeah, I think that it's such an important thing. And, so much of this, we always think about the individual, right, with the mental illness or the substance use, but it really impacts the whole family, right? And so what an opportunity, potentially to treat the whole family, right? Like, and help the whole family to be successful. And really, I just think that there's so many gaps in so many of these, you know, systems. And so if we can, come together and I mean, an inpatient setting, what an opportunity to be able to support the parents who are navigating it. Because I can imagine that when you were going through that stuff, it wasn't easy and it's not like the information was just out there, right? You had to like go through it. And so um yeah, I just think that it's an amazing thing. Um Can you talk a little bit about, or I'm sorry, I gotta look and see what I wrote here. You shared a success story already. What would you say to a parent or an individual who might be struggling or, experiencing that isolation or just really doesn't know what to do with their child?
Um, because so to a parent, I would say that there's hope. Uh, and a lot of times I will sit with a parent when they're in the worst stuff, and there's nothing left for me to suggest or actually do. And I'll just sit and listen and say, this is hard and this sucks. And that's all I can say right now. It will get better. I don't know when, but no, I'm here with you. And they appreciate the honesty and the openness so much, and just acknowledging that this sucks. But there is hope. And they know there's hope because we got through it. And I can tell them that I've watched other parents get through it. I won't give them timelines or promises, but they'll get through somehow eventually. And so to have some hope. If I could tell therapists, I guess service facilitators who are very well-meaning, who want to help, but if I could tell them some things not to say, I've seen it done and I just cringe. Like, don't tell parents, have you ever thought of getting your own therapist? They're like, when? I don't get sleep. Or just do some self-care. Like, if they could do more self-care, they would. And the thing that I got frustrated with when we were going through it was, oh, you're doing a great job. And I just wanted to be like, if I'm doing so great, then why isn't anything changing? So I'm really just acknowledging where it's at instead of trying to give those pats on the back. They think they're doing the right thing because they want to make it better. But sometimes you just have to name that it really sucks.
Well, Michelle, I want to give you kind of this last opportunity. Um, is there anything else that you want to share or talk about?
Yeah, a couple of things I thought of when we were inpatient with one of the girls. There was a psychiatrist and that we talked to, and I said, what can we do for the other kids? They're struggling with this. There's actually a term for that. It's called glass children. The kids that don't that you kind of see through because you're so focused on the one that needs the help. Um, but when I asked that, he said, "Well, what would you do if this child had cancer?" Uh, and I looked at him and I said, "Well, we'd have a benefit put on for us. We'd have people volunteering to come watch the other kids or give us a break, and we'd have a date night. We'd probably have someone coming to volunteer and clean our house once in a while. We'd have people coming in to bring us meals, and we'd have a ton of support. And I know all of this because my nieces beat cancer just a year ago." And he looked at me and he went, "Oh, yeah, I guess you're right." And so we need to start looking at mental illness like we do physical illnesses and wrap around people and support them as communities, as peers, as systems, instead of just telling them to try harder, love them more, do more when parents and families are exhausted already. Um, Parents, children, no one recovers in a vacuum. It happens as a family, it happens as a community. Um, and they need someone with lived experience to actually give them hope because hope is all they can hang on to some days.
Beautiful, Michelle. I appreciate that so much. You're kind of making my eyes water here. Um, yeah, I mean, it's so true on so many levels. Like, we don't I feel like we lose sight of people, in all of this, in the systems, and they just become consumers or whatever. And so it's refreshing to hear that. And I really think that with peer supports, parent peer supports, like there is such an opportunity here for that. And we can create services that really address the individual. And I think that hopefully that's what we're moving towards, right? And I think there is, this movement, and every time I have a conversation with somebody, I'm a little bit more uh optimistic, right? That that's the future. So Um, Michelle, again, I am so grateful that you took the time out of your busy schedule to meet with me last week and again today. I just I think I'm gonna include a link to your organization. And I guess if we could wrap it up, like what would you say to somebody who might be interested in becoming a parent peer support?
Look on the website for the trainings. There will be more coming up end of this year, early next year. Take a training, and if you're not sure what route to go, contact me. I'm always looking to grow counties. Even if it's not a county that we already serve, uh, I can grow out further. Um, or I may have someone else to refer you to, like someone I know that does services in that area. Because we need more people, we need more support for parents. And so if you've got um, hope to share, then we need you out there supporting other families.